Hey, somebody likes us.
Hey gang, what's happening?
Salutations,
Hello.
gamers.
Welcome to Sundays. Welcome to the first ever episode of Gloves Off. Hello. Howdy everybody. I'm Jason, also known as Slow Fuse. You guys know me. That over there is my wonderful host, co-host of the year, the sexy, the one and the only Uncle Touchy, Naked Puzzle Basement, Mike C. With a snazzy white jacket. He made me wear a coat. He brought a coat and made me wear a coat. This is not what this show was supposed to be about. And in the third chair, the lovely, the one, the only, the impeccable unicorn herself, Jintastic. Say hi, everybody. Say hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Sunday. New show that we've got. We've been hyping it all week. Hopefully everybody has been able to see some of the fun graphics. Now you're going to see them all live, obviously, here, live and in person. And welcome to all of our YouTube viewers as well. Yes, these videos will be going out to YouTube, but if you are watching this on YouTube, we'd like to give out a big thank you to you first of all, but also realize that this happens live every Sunday at noon here on Twitch TV at Slow Fuse Gaming. So if you happen to be catching this late, please try to join us live next time. We'd love to have you. He has hair. I do have hair, right? It's kind of funny. It's always under a hat. All sorts of new and amazing things going on here, right? Okay, so this show, as the intro, what we're going to be doing is setting up the basis for what the show is all about. What is Gloves Off? What are we going to be doing? It's going to be an every Sunday show, and we're going to take some time not only to provide some really cool information for you this week, but to just set the stage for what's going to be happening in subsequent shows down the road. So without further ado, I guess we ought to talk about why we're here. Why are we here? Like, what are we even doing here?
That's a great question. I think all of humanity is asking itself at this moment.
If all of humanity is asking, we're absolutely lost. So, because I have no solutions for all of humanity, right?
And what would
Somebody
the
likes
perfect
us.
dice look like? Because every time I find like a good set of dice, then there's something else that I need to have. When will it ever stop?
So wait, so is this the show about how our wallets get drained at the world of tabletop wargaming?
This is a show that enables the addiction.
Okay, all right. So hopefully Jen will be able to keep us in check a little bit.
I don't know.
No, she's probably not. Probably. I don't think you can stop this train, nor can you control it. But there you go. Uncle Touchy looks like Christian Bale, says Black Zodiac. Welcome everybody. Hello everybody in chat. We are going to be working a little bit different than we normally do on our live streams here. To start us off, I won't be calling out every single thing that gets stated in chat. Obviously, we've got to keep the flow of the show rolling. So don't feel bad if you type something in chat and we miss it. If we don't get to it until later, please don't hate us. We are going to try to keep this running because what Gloves Off is a variety talk show
Hey,
focused
somebody
on
likes
tabletop
us.
wargaming and all of the things revolving around the hobby, the developers, the games, the state of the businesses, what's new, what's scary, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And as the title says with
Somebody
Gloves
likes
Off,
us.
it's really a no punches pulled kind of show. If you're used to watching us live on Twitch, you'll know that I kind of speak my mind, but I try to do it in a way that's fair and balanced to some extent. So while we'll try to avoid getting overly newsy,
somebody
we
likes
are going to
us.
show some opinions here. And that's just going to always stay that way. Hey, thank you for the follow. And it really is something that we pride ourselves on, is taking our own interest in this hobby and the love of the games and trying to present it to you in a
Hey,
way that
somebody
may help
likes
you
it.
determine what you may like, what you disagree with. I guarantee we'll say some things on here that aren't going to be the way that you think, and that's fine. Feel free to argue the points. But we're here to discuss gaming and all of its good and its bad as well, and to have a lot of fun while we do it. So just to kick us off, we'll talk about all of the parameters of this show, what it's going to be back, and then we'll kick the show off and actually start going. Sound good?
I like it.
All right. Well, first, you've seen it, the intro. So we get to come in, tell you about what's new for the week. This week, like I said, just an intro show where we'll be going over all of the particulars of how the show operates. We're also going to be discussing exactly the state of the game, what we see for the here and the now of miniature wargaming, as well as the near future. Discuss a little bit about the past as well. That will be taking place in a portion of our show called the main event. Obviously, you see the boxing flair that we've gone for here. But first, what we like to do is show you how the show is going to progress on a weekly basis so you can know what to expect. So you'll see this intro. We'll talk to you. We'll let you know how we're doing, ask you how you guys are doing. Take a look at some of the chat out here. You miss about half of what we say anyway, Arman's Rat says. Well, you know. But I'm old. I just have to blame being old and forgetful. I can get away with that, right?
Somebody
But welcome
likes us.
everybody, you'll see that we'll switch over at the beginning of the show. We will discuss some things like the upcoming calendar of events. And as we discuss the calendar, we'll go over here. You'll see a new spot on the
somebody likes
website
us.
over at slowfusegaming.com. If you go, there is a new little header here called the calendar. You see it over here on the right. And on that calendar, you'll see all of the upcoming events as they pertain to not only the show, but what we may be doing as far as conventions, meeting us out live, tournaments that we've got coming up. If you have something that you want to be put on the calendar, you can contact us via email through the Slow Fuse Gaming site. And we reserve the right to deny anybody, but we might put your event up there if you got something cool going on. But this includes all of the Tuesday, Friday, and our Wednesday shows, our Whip Wednesday. Everything that we do over on the Twitch channel is up here. They all take you with direct links over to Twitch and state the times. It also is a great way for you to see exactly what's going on with Gloves Off. In the case of, if I can get it to work here, the first show, that's us right here, and what we're doing today. It'll also let you know what's coming up on the subsequent weeks. So next week is a journey into Deep Wars. That'll be the first game that we're discussing in depth here. Pun, not intended, but works.
Dice roll.
Oh, no, that's not how it works. I haven't even told him about that yet. You can't jump the gun, can you?
So above us, as you can see, this hand, that hand, those are health markers. Somebody does something, even check and dictate a dice roll. Successful hit actually reduces your health meter.
See this face? You see this face? You see what I have to deal with?
So good. Who wants a dice roll right now for the pun?
Thank you.
Hey, thanks
What?
for the host,
You
Twitter.
can't get a dice roll for the pun. That was a good one.
But you don't like dad jokes.
Called you out.
Really?
Yeah? Jen is our mediator. She is the referee of the match.
All right. We'll show him how it works. He's going to roll the dice against me.
Somebody
What's the hit
likes
number?
us.
I'm going to give you a 3-up.
A 3-up is a hit?
Yep.
How many damage am I going to take?
I'll give you 1.
That's only a 1, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's only 1. So watch the die. He's going to hit on a 3-up. Oh, God. Oh.
First blood.
This is the story of my life right here. I don't even understand why this is happening. But there you go.
Wait, no, you messed up.
I lose 1 health.
Where's the kapow?
I don't get a kapow until the screen breaks.
Oh, that's sad.
That's
I want
right.
a kapow.
No.
The kapow comes
gotta
when
try
the
harder
screen
than
breaks.
that.
Kapow is what breaks
Yeah,
the
You gotta
screen.
try harder than that. All right, so as you can see, the bickering on stream and the bickering with you guys in chat can generate dice rolls that will subtract from Mike and I's health bar. If either of us, or both of us in some cases, reach the end of our health bar, it will smash the screen. I'll throw it up here and show you what that entails. But basically, you would get the kapow and then the broken screen. So for some reason it doesn't want to work like we want it with a kapow and a broken screen. And the person whose screen breaks, the screen just stays broken for the rest of the stream. So if one of us is an idiot early on, then we just have to talk to you through broken glass for the rest of the stream. But hopefully that's not going to happen too often. We're going to go with maybe that's maybe I can maintain my my friendly, cordial nature, and Mike will die every stream. Also, the one of us who does not have a broken screen, who survives the stream, will get to wear the Fat Lady Sings hat and stand upon our verbal soapbox at the end of the stream. So we're just hoping it's not that guy. No, we really need to hope it's not that guy. Like legit, it needs to not be Mike. So if anyone out there would like to help me in this venture, just make sure that dice rolls are always against Mike. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I can. This is gonna be horrible. He's drinking too. So, there you go.
Liquid courage.
Dice roll for bad
Dice
singing.
roll for bad singing.
All right, I like this.
There you go.
I'm not even gonna ask. Dice roll for bad singing. All right, I think I hit him on a. He was fair to me. He gave me a 3-up, so we're gonna hit Mike on a 3-up. So here we go. Yes, got you. How does that work?
You never try and shoot.
How did the dice fail me?
Wait, so
never shoot the devil in the back.
I don't explain to me how that works.
I have to roll the die, and if the die
Right.
is like on a 3-up, it gives
3
me a
or
one.
above,
Yeah.
then
1.
and so does it give you? Do you?
No,
okay.
shush.
Okay.
Shush, he's trying to kill me too. What the hell?
No.
Yeah, right, Agent Arrow, story of my life from chat there. Yeah, welcome. I'm the one that's going to take
Yeah.
it. right in the bum this whole time. I have a feeling this is going to end very poorly for me.
Hey, LT said I should be at the top of the screen looking down on everyone,
No,
not at the bottom.
No. That was a thought, and that's not going to happen, folks. Sorry, we're not going to give her that power.
If
We're
it's
not
a
gonna
tie,
give her
do
that
I
power.
get? If it's a tie, do I get to wear the hat?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. If we both die.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Then you get the hat.
Okay.
Which is, I guess that would be okay too. The whole goal here is to try to keep yourself in line so that you don't wind up dead by the end of the show, because there's no telling what these other two people are going to say. So I'd like to have a feeling of at least a little composure and control here, but we'll see how it goes. I have a feeling I'm in for a world of hurt during the course of these streams. So there you go. As you can see by my dice rolling, I think we're already knowing where that's going. All right, so anyway, on the calendar, you can always check the calendar, see what's going on. Just as a quick view of it, obviously we've got the first show. Next week is going to be the focus on Deep Wars. I won't make the pun again, but it's going to be the first in look at the game where Mike and I are going to be discussing rule sets. We'll also be playing our first game of Deep Wars with you guys live, so you can see how the game plays out, how the rules interact, how the armies work, things like that. We'll have a little bit more to show you on that today. Then every other week here on Gloves Off will be a focus stream like what you're seeing today. No live gameplay, but we'll be discussing things and points about the games in question. We'll be doing full reviews on the games that we played in previous weeks. We'll have developers in here talking with us live, so that we'll have guests that can kind of speak to the strengths, weaknesses, directions, future of games that we see and like. So that ought to be a lot of fun. We'll have some great interaction with chat so that you guys can ask questions to those developers as well. As you can see, then the following week is Jen's birthday. The unicorn gets 1 year younger. She lives in reverse. It's that Benjamin Button thing. So it's kind of weird being here with her, because eventually I'm going to be changing diapers, but I've got that to look forward to.
But you'll be wearing diapers when you're changing
I
diapers.
think so. I'll be in
That's
Depends, and
right.
I'll be
Yep.
changing diapers, so it'll be all right. It'll be kind of a unique situation. Hopefully, we don't have to stream that for you guys. Also, on Jen's birthday, Uncle Touchy will not be with us, but Jen will be learning a game called Arena Rex with us. So we'll be delving into Arena Rex that week. I'll have some more to talk about with regards to Arena Rex later on in the show today, and then so on and so forth. You can go off. I'll generally try to keep the calendar updated a month in advance, sometimes two, and you can see what miniatures are coming so that you can prepare if it's a game that interests you. You can get a hold of some other miniatures and paint along with us during the weeks, because during the weekly painting streams, we will always be focusing on painting miniatures for the coming up games. So some really cool stuff where you get to see the miniatures in question before we actually put them on the table. So a lot of fun there. After we discuss the calendar on a week-to-week, we will be doing Backstage Pass. The Backstage Pass feature here will allow us to show off what we've been doing in the past week since you've seen us with regards to the hobby, stuff we've been painting, building, games we've been playing in the background, maybe some stories you've had from tournaments. Thug Life Arts and Crafts. So whatever, she's making a hell of a rug, but she's never going to finish it. I've thrown the gauntlet at. She's never going to finish her rug, but we will be talking to Thug Life Arts and Crafts as well, so the unicorn can speak to what she's been doing in the week. She got her nose pierced this week. It needs to have like a these kids these days, crazy
Like a
freaking
spotlight
kids.
on it, have it reflect and blind
Crazy
everyone.
freaking kids. After each week after we do the Backstage Pass, we'll go straight to the main event. That will be the focus of the week. This week's focus, of course, is the state of the game. Just basically talking about the wargaming industry in general. So we'll have some information for you coming up in a few on that. And then after we discuss the main structure of the show, it could be a particular game. It could be a focus on a genre of games. It could be user-submitted info, things like that. News of the weeks. Then we have a section that we call Highs and Lows, where we get to discuss the things that have happened to us over the past week that really either get us super excited about the hobby or totally bum us out about the hobby. That one could be a very exciting and noteworthy part where we could probably excite some feathers, burn some tails.
Absolutely. Shake
Yeah.
some tail feathers.
I'm sure some people are going to get angry with us during that one. And happy too, because of the highs part.
Gonna have to get the fire hose though.
And then at the end of the day, we will be going and doing something that we call Hobby Love. And Hobby Love is going to be something, if you're familiar with our community gallery over on slowfusegaming.com, the Hobby Love section of the show will allow us to spotlight particular miniatures that we have picked out of the group that the community has painted up that really show kind of the true unique nature of our hobby. It could be anything from a new painter and the amazing work that they've done while watching our streams and picking up details and methods from other painters, and that we've really seen some creative growth with, or it could just be something that knocks your socks off. Just an amazing miniature. So another reason to post your stuff over on the community gallery every week, because we will be going back and filtering through and spotlighting a few of those, probably 2 to 3 every week, maybe more if we have some really great ones, and picking it out and really going over in detail the miniatures and the work that our community members have done. So we want to show some love back to you guys, of course. Should be tons and tons of fun. So without further ado, do you guys have anything you want to add? I think I covered the bases.
The crowd is asking for me to have a pink referee shirt or jacket.
This could be a thing.
Yeah, I like that.
I feel like that could be a thing.
See?
I feel like a pink referee shirt could be a thing, or maybe just a black and white one would make sense. We could probably make that a thing. I think that could be a thing. I like that idea.
Yeah.
That gets a check mark, a gold star for the people who have come up with that one. I think that's a pretty good one. Anything else? You want to add anything before we jump into the meat?
I'm excited. I mean, I love the fact that the chat can interact with us, give us great ideas like that. They're also going to be able to dictate what happens between us during this and even during games later.
Is this playing off of their love for us, perhaps?
This is a good observation from Kilty O'Neill. Crockett on the right and Tubbs on the left.
I'm just a cranky old man, and he's the millennial, so this is probably going to burn in a dumpster fire. But other than that, I think we're going pretty well.
Dobby is free. Dobby has no master.
Oh, God. All right, well, first off, we've talked about our calendar, so let's get right into the Backstage Pass stuff here, guys. Ooh. In Backstage Pass, Backstage Pass, we're going to show you guys what we've been working on over the past week, and the bulk of this is going to be Mike, because Mike is a painting maniac. I'm here to tell you, the guy's excitement makes me anemic, feel very, very low. Because I'm just staring at all the stuff you painted. He has literally attacked this with a hysteria that I can't even come close to meeting. So,
Right.
Take it away.
I guess first wave of miniatures.
Oh.
Spiky Bits TV, thank you for the host.
Rob, thank you so much. Do I get to roll a die on that? He said first wave. It's Deep Wars stuff.
Oh.
He gets to make the puns.
I started the dad jokes with
I
the
don't
stream, though.
understand.
So, Jason has decided to give me the Dark Mariners to start off with Deep Wars. And to give you an idea, the Dark Mariners, do we want to go in the backstory of Deep Wars right now? Or
Do
just
your thing, yeah. Deep Wars is the first game we're going to be focusing on, like we said. So starting next week, you'll be seeing some gameplay. And during the week, this week, you'll be seeing me painting live on stream some of the Deep Wars miniatures. So yeah, give them a taste of what's coming.
And they actually have a pretty sizable rule book. This is actually a very in-depth game if you really want to get into backstory.
I think you photoshopped these.
Probably.
They can't possibly really
I
be
did.
painted, right?
Well, I actually copied this guy I saw on stream. He was kind of good, and then I just kind of played off of that.
I feel like these are photoshopped.
There's no mahogany on these, though.
I feel like
Oh, what?
rolling the dice.
Roll it, yes. That's a dice roll. Show.
For lack of mahogany, we are going to hit Mike C on a 2-up.
Houdini 7 said a 5-up.
What? No, 2-up.
Oh.
Yep, a 2-up and a 6. A 6 is about as good as it gets, my friend. So, sorry, my friend, but yeah, you don't get to hold on to that health. I think I'll take that one.
It's all right. It's all right. We get some more. But I guess Deep Wars is set in this, I think it's the 19th century, under Antarctica or something like that.
Yes.
So, basically, researchers have found some technology. They go under a couple of ice caps. They find basically technology and treasure under there, and different factions are fighting for power.
Think like crazy Atlantean mystery stuff. Like almost Lovecraftian meets Jules Verne, I think is the way I look at Deep Wars. Kind of a
I'm digging it. They actually have a couple of really cool mechanics, not only with the amount of turns you get to take with the unit, but also with the levels you can create just standing still. You don't necessarily need cover. You can go up and down because it's water, so you can have different levels of depth. But I actually learned a valuable lesson while trying to paint these, is because never date someone who's got an art background, and you don't. My girlfriend and I have been dating for some time before we became exclusive and moved in together, and I didn't know that her family is amazingly creative, both musically and artistically. And apparently,
so wait. Let me get this straight. Did you literally move in with her without asking?
Yes. She just came home one day, and there I was. Actually drove across the country. It was an awkward thing at first, but
And
She's
now
come
she's
to
critiquing
she's
your
come
choice
to
of
deal with
painting.
it.
Yes. Well, that's so. My thing is I like to bring out characters from movies and comic books. I think that's a really fun way to actually do miniatures. So when I saw, this Deep Sea Maiden, I was just like, that's Ursula. I need to make that, but that's a young, hot Ursula. we got to make this little spice right there. That's what happens before she became the cranky old hag. So I'm painting her up, and I'm trying to do this thing, and she just walks over and she just goes, "Why'd you use all that purple? That looks stupid."
Oh.
And I'm sitting there, and I didn't really learn to draw till I was like 10, and I don't.
Can we
really
all
know how
shed
to
a
draw.
tear for Mike and his plight?
Yeah.
One tear.
Yes. But the actual fun background of this was she saw these miniatures, and I'm mainly a 40K player. She cares nothing about any of those robots or any of those silly soldiers. But she saw these characters.
And they popped for her.
Huge. She started talking about especially the Hermit Crab from Hell.
Yep.
Talking about doing freehand things with that. So I had to go out and get her 2 miniatures, not just that one, but she also has a thing for mermaids. And she's actually been working on those. Never painted a miniature before in her life. She already knows how to wet blend and everything else with the colors.
Sure.
Everything that's taken me a year and a half to learn, she just did in 5 seconds.
Sure. I just saw an article that said we need to get more women into the hobby because they paint better than us. And I was like, why is that an incentive?
No. In fact, if everyone could actually tone themselves down, that'd be great. 'Cause,
No girls allowed. I did not just say that, so. Oh, by the way, we have a question from chat here, Mike. I believe someone would like to know, Armin's Wrath in particular, whether or not there's any ivory on these models.
It's bone white. Bone white's a thing. It's
Ivory not being as well, I don't know. I feel like Ivory might be a 2-up as well.
Okay.
All right. I feel like Ivory's a 2-up. Oh! Spot on, baby. Spot on,
So what
baby.
happens? So that loses a health too.
I will remember this betrayal.
By the way, I think that Rob Bear,
Somebody
Spike
likes
Bits
us.
TV, is saying that Mike C is a younger, hotter slow fuse.
Dale 100, welcome. Thank you for the follow.
I think that might be what
a
he's
younger,
saying.
hotter slow
I,
fuse?
if I'm reading it correctly, that's how I am interpreting.
I got your number, Rob.
So,
I know where you live. Actually, I don't know where you live anymore. He has a new address. He
oh,
moved.
that's right. He's got the new gaming
Yeah,
studio.
he moved.
Yeah. But fun story, guys, is when we're deciding when to actually do these armies, Fuse puts out all these models in front of me. He's like, all right, here's going to be Arena Rex. Here's going to be Wild West Exodus. Here's Deep Wars. Pick your Deep Wars faction. And I'm looking through all the different things. He goes, oh, you picked Dark Mariners. Good, I'll take this. Do you understand what's in his army? Let's show this.
Well, no, that's not. Okay, so wait a minute.
A week later, I'm not done talking. A week later, he comes out and he goes, hey, by the way, you have to fight this. You have to fight this thing.
It barely
You
even fits.
can't even get this in the screen, ladies
so
and gentlemen.
huge.
Look, all right, let's put this. This is the captain for my team. This thing. That, and he's got something else as big. He's got an anglerfish. This comes out, by the way, you have to fight these things. This is what I'm up against. But it's a very exciting game. I'm looking forward to this. And then
He just painted me to be a very bad man, and I would like to tell you that I was very nice, and I showed him everything, and I said, "What would you like to play?" He mentioned that part, but he kind of glazed right over the fact that he got the choice. Right? He could have done some better research and found like which faction had the bigger models, the big angry fish, and things like that. You could have done this.
I could have. Sleight of hand, though. I was vulnerable. I was in a vulnerable position, and
I
you
know.
took advantage of me.
This was-
I was in your home. I trusted you.
Hey, there are 2 calls for dice roll for bad sound effects / extended gurgling.
What?
But well, and then we also have a dad joke from Snake Man. Something seems fishy to me. What about dice rolls for the viewers?
No. No.
I like that.
There's no way to stop chat. Even if we took all of chat's health away, we can't stop chat. So I have to take a dice roll for blowing bubbles in my water?
You said that chat would be allowed
What
to.
is it? What's his call? What's the hit?
I'm gonna go
They
for
haven't
it.
said.
4 up? Okay, it's a 4 up. You heard Mike. Mike C says 4 up. 4 up it is. A 1! The roll was a little squirrely there, but I'm going to go with it. Because it works in my favor.
Cock die.
Cocked die? No, that's fine. It's a 1. That's spot on. That's a 1. I can
No.
see it. It's a 1.
All right, so moving right along, you talked about Arena Rex. I was really excited when I saw these miniatures. However, they violate one of my codes of
Sorry,
gaming,
Snake Man, I still
which
love
is
you.
never ever mix pewter and resin models because they just turn into hell with glue. But they came out with these really awesome characters,
These things are freaking amazing.
aren't they? I mean, look at this whip character. Now, this is the one time I actually really like the use of pewters because I can actually mold this whip as much as I want to actually get that right angle. And they also have a beautiful rule book. They did a great job with the production on the boxes.
Yeah.
And they even, like, the beginning of the rule book is a historical, like, view into gladiatorial arts and what the political atmosphere in Rome at that time.
Yeah, I think it starts with the fall of Julius Caesar, right?
Yeah, and Antony's rise to power.
Yeah.
They seem to do a really great job with it, and they give you everything you really need to play the game. It looks like a fantastic mechanism. I'm really excited for this. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be here for it. Jen's going to be manning this team. I'm going to have to learn how to do flesh tones. So this is going to be more painful exercises.
There's a lot of flesh tones in Arena Rex, so if you're going to do paint-alongs with us in Arena Rex, yeah, so that's going to be a blast for you.
No, that's...
Good
It'd be
practice.
the best way to learn, trial by fire, so to speak.
No,
They are great miniatures, though, and I love the scale of them. They're in that same like Deep Wars. You're at more of like that 35 millimeter scale. So I think for the hobby, they're less daunting to get into, just because of the fact that the details are so much larger. Each one of them is like painting a Primaris Space Marine almost, right?
Absolutely.
They're big enough that the details really stand out.
And when you really look, like even the big guy right here, when you look at him, he's got folds in his back. Those are going to shade themselves.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm looking forward to this because that's really going to help my hand a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm really learning how to use a brush more. I grabbed the Klinsky sables
Yep.
from you. That makes a whole world of difference, at least to me, when you're working with the glazing technique.
Yep.
And I'm still learning. That's why I jumped on these early, because I feel like, if I'm going to have something on the table next to yours, I got to up my game.
Oh, well.
So
Okay, his stuff is amazing, by the way. I think we're going to have to just start rolling dice against Mike every time he slights his own painting. His paintwork is amazing.
And then I think after that, we have Wild West Exodus coming up.
Wild West Exodus, yep. Wild West Exodus will be the third game that we shoot. We're doing Deep Wars first, Arena Rex that you just mentioned, and then Wild West Exodus. And I just want you guys to notice how far ahead of me he is in this game, because I don't have any of these models with paint on them. I have one Deep Wars model painted. And you've got your whole force painted. You've already put together your Arena Rex guys, and look at this.
So these are only two of them, but I really liked how these Wild West Exodus models are coming out. I've got to learn non-metal metallic because it would just feel right with these models. But they came out with these really awesome Western versions. Kind of like a modernized, like, atomic bomb went off out in the Wild West. There's some alien architecture going on, or alien technology going on that
Yep.
they've gotten their hands on. And all these different factions are basically interacting and vying for power. He's giving me the lawman section, so I've got Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday with me. I'm really excited about this one. You've got Jesse James, right?
Yeah, I might not be very excited about it, but I do. I have the James brothers.
So, and the deal with the lawmen is I painted them all up to have gray hair because I figured they're stressed out. They're actually supposed to be hitting a little bit behind because they were one
Is
of the
this why I
last.
have to wear the black coat?
You're the man in black, sir. But the devil always wears white. That's right. Do you know why the female
It makes me
rapper...
play Outlaws and gives me a black coat. I feel a trend happening here.
There we go. Well, actually, technically, Wyatt Earp always wore black, so...
Oh, that's true, too.
See, right there. But you're going to have to get the facial hair going if we're going to do a Western game.
Do I have to do the mustache? I already told you I can't grow the mustache.
I'd say we leave it up to the stream.
I'm mustachio challenged. I can do the mustache, but I can't, like, the hairs on the end don't ever get to the point where they do this. That would be like years from now before I could do the thing with the thing.
See, my power is in my beard. That's just where it is.
All right.
But so I'm
I doubt this strongly. I strongly doubt this.
and what I think what's really going to be on display is that he's got a jet bike and I've got a motorcycle. This is going to be awesome.
They do have great technology. I'm excited to discuss more with Wild West when we get there. It's a great game. Again, the scale is a little bit larger than your standard 28 millimeters, so the details really come out on them.
Yeah, I mean-
but they're not as like heroic scale. They feel a lot more like a Malifaux or an Infinity to me as far as the depth on the models. Great stuff though. Really, really excited. Hopefully we can get the Wayland Games guys in here to discuss the game with us. That's going to be a lot of fun.
No, and my little hobby crack thing of the week.
Thank you so much, Flip. You're
Thanks,
for real.
Flip.
Awkward but fun, he says. Thank you so much. Flip you coming in out with $5. Thank you for the support, my friend.
Hey, can I interject something here?
I don't know. Can you?
I think I can.
$5 donation received from PPF
Who heard Jason
awkward.
mocking me for not having my rug finished?
What? Wait a minute. That was. Hey, wait a minute.
I believe he
asked
said-
you over 5 minutes ago.
I believe
That
he
was
said,
over 5 minutes
I
ago. That's a
am
rule.
never going
I didn't make
to,
it. Oh.
she's never going to finish that rug.
Yeah.
And yet, who's got the models that are unpainted?
Well, his models are unpainted.
But who's,
My models are unpainted.
yeah, but who's further along in the model painting? I'm just saying it's a little bit of the pot calling the kettle black here.
You
know I love you.
I'm feeling some heat here.
I think you got to come to Jesus.
Can
moment
I
right now.
call
It's
for
a
a dice
beautiful
roll?
It's a very beautiful rug.
Desire Death is on my side here.
It's a very, very beautiful rug.
I can't comment on the situation.
I feel like the rug is the best rug I've ever seen her make.
Oh.
Too late.
So what are you doing? You're calling for a dice roll?
I believe so.
Jen. Godhammer.
What's the number?
I don't know.
1 up.
What?
A 1 up?
No.
Just take a health?
You took a shot at the ref.
Just take a damage for taking a shot at the ref?
It doesn't have to be 1 up. No.
I feel like we
4.
just took a shot.
Oh,
4.
she calls a 4.
4.
On a 4 up, you get it back. She's being nice. I think she's just scared just to live with you.
4 because it was more than 5 minutes ago.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I'll take that.
This is
It's a
justice.
fair
I'll
compromise.
take that. I'll take that. Watch, it's going to be well, it's another 1. Another one.
Watch
So I
the
get my
one,
health
the
back?
loaded dice
I
there.
get my health back? Oh my god, I love you people. God.
Hey, you know why the female rapper only rap during her menstrual cycle? Because she wanted to keep a mean flow. This is live, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm just taking a health from him. He's just costing himself dearly. So Mike's almost dead. Thank you, stream. That was great. What the hell?
All right, I'm gonna get this bad boy. Look at this tag, though. This is Infinity. This is easily my new favorite model.
We didn't even do a dice roll on that one. It just automatic deduction.
I just took health. I don't even. I have the power here. I didn't even bother. Not even worth a dice roll. That is a great tag.
I love this.
Why'd you take him off?
Because
he has no
he's
paint.
got glare.
People are asking for dice rolls for completely unpainted minis, but that's not. This is not about having to have paint. It's just that if you do have
Right.
paint, you have to use mahogany or ivory. I think that's really all there is to it. But
I was just very excited about this model. Unlike any other tag, I think in Infinity, this is a symbiotic entity, so I don't think the pilot jumps out. This is its own thing.
yeah, the combined army has got similar stuff, but it's a really unique thing. The aliens tend to have these big creatures more than tags, but they provide the same function. So
Different tag. I love this. This has got me so stoked. This is basically, I had the feeling about this like I had like a dreadnought in full
he's a
tag.
dirty Toha player.
So dirty.
Dirty Toha player. Jeez.
Now that I've hogged the camera, it's on you.
Okay. All right. So my last week, you guys, mine's a little easier because everybody watches me all week. So my last week was built off of primarily working on a little bit of a headless Ferrus Manus that we got going on here. So a Forge World Primarch for one of our viewers, Mathis from Australia. He had us do the Emperor's Children for him last year, and part of that Emperor's Children commission, of course, was their Primarch, Fulgrim, and in order to do and complete the entire interlocking diorama base, we've been working on the Iron Hands Ferrus Manus to go along with that. He admittedly has no head, which is kind of nice. We worked on showing off some of the OSL lighting from the plasma gun. We did that on Wednesday and Friday of this week, so that was a lot of fun. Got that done. Nice mini. I'm enjoying working on him. He does have a lot of the fiddly bits. I think the Forge World models, they go a little overboard with the detail sometimes, just for the sake of having more detail. But I can't argue it. It looks good. So.
How is that putting that together?
I don't mind their resins. I feel like it's pretty simple. They all go together very well, and they don't have a lot of like join lines or things like that you have to fill. Fulgrim didn't. They do have a lot of little bitty fiddly things on them though. Like Fulgrim's got a bajillion little leather straps, and all of them have like little chains that hang off here and there that just give more detail. There's like 6 or 7 parts on him that I still have to go.
Fandangles?
Do dangly.
Yeah.
Do dangly things.
And tiddly
yes.
bits?
Yeah, that too. Tiddly bits. All right, and we worked. You guys may have seen this. This is one of the the first X-wing repaint that I've done, which is the Imperial Decimator, and I got that sort of pretty much finished up for where I was going for it. I wanted to really just use this as a way to see what the hobby of X-wing could bring, because I hadn't painted any of them. I hadn't really paid attention to the game. We are going to be focused in on all of the Fantasy Flight Star Wars games in the month of December with the new movie coming out, so that'll be coming up on the calendar as well. And so I just wanted to kind of jump the gun and see what I enjoyed about it. The details hold up really well. Of course, this is one of the larger models in the Decimator. It's one of the large base models. But I had a lot of fun painting it. It leaves a lot of room for, custom stuff like, again, OSL lighting effects like I've done here on some of the lights, and then, some weathering. So I had a blast doing it. I think it's fun. I think I'll enjoy doing more of the large base ones than the smaller ones, but we'll see. And then, of course, Mike already popped the cherry with regards to my Deep War stuff. This will be the model that we are focused on painting during the course of the week. This is my commander. He's like a lizard dude riding on another fish dude. And so...
he's only 7 inches tall.
He's only like 7 inches tall. Thank you for the follow. But, so we're going to be working on this during the course of the week, showing you some neat techniques with regards to painting with inks will be the primary technique that I'm using with my Deep War stuff. Not only does it allow me to get some models completed in a little bit quicker fashion, but it gives you a really cool depth and way to get some really, really cool color on models fast. So you can join us this week, Tuesday through Friday. We'll be painting these guys up, and a lot to see there. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Other than that, just working on the store. I guess we got to talk about the Arena Rex stuff. Coming up on the store tomorrow. You guys are the first to hear about it. But on the store tomorrow will be the latest Arena Rex miniature coming out right now. And he's for the Ludus Magnus. We will be playing with this guy live as we do Arena Rex later on in the month. He is not released yet that I am aware of, so this will be the first place that you can get him is on our store at slowfusegaming.com. We have 12 of these available for the Paint-Along series that we will be doing in 2 weeks, where I paint this guy up live on stream. On the store starting tomorrow will be the color set that is available, all of the colors that I'm going to be using to do him in, as well as the model itself where you can get it firsthand. So be looking out for that. Probably by around midday tomorrow you'll see him pop up on the store with the paint set. You can buy either or both. Again, this is limited to 12 in sales because it's specifically for the paint-along, which the Arena Rex guys from Red Republic Games will be painting along with us, which is really exciting. Their director of hobby operations will be in chat with us, watching the stream, and painting his own miniature and showing it off in the community gallery, so it should be a ton of fun. Also, just doing the standard store stuff. Putting in some new products.
I saw you got a couple of new things over there. What are you going to be using those for?
Couple new things. We brought in all of the Vallejo water textures, the still water from Vallejo, and a new product. The still water's been around for a long time. The clear gel water texture is what I'm really interested in. So you might see me using this on stream and just running it through its paces to kind of get a feel for how we like it. But I'm really interested in that. It's basically like the earth effects, so you can paint it on with a brush as opposed to the still water that you have to treat more like a 2-part epoxy, even though it's already mixed.
Okay.
With the still water effects, you basically, as you can tell, you just squirt it into an area on a base and let it dry. Building up subsequent layers, you can tint it with paint, and it gives exactly what it says on the label, a still water. The gel, on the other hand, a little bit thicker, able to paint it on. It doesn't. It's not as runny. It doesn't go into as many nooks and crannies on the base, so you can get it to. But unlike the liquid stuff, where you have to, do it on a flat surface, let it dry, do another one, let it level. The gel gives you the ability to do some extra wave. You can put it on top of the still water. I haven't played with it a whole lot, but I'm looking to get my hands on it, so I'm excited about that. Okay. Both of those are up in the store right now, or will be. I don't know if they actually showed up on the store. They may show up tomorrow as well. And then, of course, hopefully the brushes will be coming in. For those of you that have been paying attention, the Slow Fuse Gaming Bomb Wicks, we're crossing our fingers and hoping that those show up from shipment and through customs this week. And you guys tune into the stream. We'll let you know first right before we put them up on the store so everybody can jump on that, because I know a lot of people are chomping at the bit to get a hold of some cool Kolinsky Sable brushes from us. So we're excited to have those up and running. That's it for me. Jen got her nose pierced.
It looks good. It really does.
You can't see it, but it's there.
All right, so with that, let's jump right into the main event. We're going to be basically going through and talking about the state of the current world of miniature wargaming. Some things that have popped up on the radar for us.
Real quick.
What's that?
Really quick.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about giveaways?
Oh, and we missed. You missed
Reverse.
another. You missed another health.
Reverse.
You missed another health.
Hey, somebody likes us.
Thank you for the follow. What was that?
Do you want to talk about giveaways?
Oh, giveaways. So if you're familiar with the way the channel works, normally during our Twitch streams during the week, we have a little bar down there at the bottom of the screen. It's our critical mass bar. During our Sunday streams, we will not be doing the giveaways. We will be forwarding all giveaways to Tuesday's live stream. So we really appreciate the support. You will not lose that support getting you a chance at a giveaway. Just realize that as the bar hits the $50 mark where we normally do our giveaways, that will just compound and start off with giveaways for Tuesday. The reason for that is that this show we want to keep on a pretty good pace, bringing information, and then obviously to be able to deliver it up to YouTube without a ton of editing, so we don't want to interfere with the show, break it up, and do giveaways. We will be having specific giveaways that take place during the Sunday shows that have to do with the specific games that we're detailing at the time. Say Deep Wars coming up next week. There will be specific giveaways that we do with that in league with the developers and the manufacturers of the games themselves, so stay tuned for those. So hopefully that clarifies that. Other than that, pretty simple. Sound good? All right. So, the main event. Where are we at in the wargaming hobby, Mike?
I think we're in a good spot.
Yeah?
But we're on a cusp that I think is actually... I think the purpose of this show really could enable where wargaming is going. Because, I mean, some people throw around the golden age of wargaming. They talk about the 70s. And that's true that was a golden age, but I would also... And I would say there's a lot of factors that are similar today, but I think it's got the potential to eclipse whatever the 70s ever was.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think maybe I think when we talk about wargaming and tabletop wargaming in general, the 70s was when it started happening, right? We started having games where you pushed chits across a table. You had like Steve Jackson and Ogre. You actually had some things that had some miniatures outside of like Dungeons and Dragons. Obviously, Dungeons and Dragons.
That came up, yeah.
You
What
know,
was that? That was TSR, right?
TSR, yep.
Yeah.
But I think you started having games that were there, and I think that was kind of that was the birth of this whole thing. I think really.
Well, technically, I mean, if you go through the history of wargaming, I think originally, the Prussians are credited with starting war games in general in like the 19th century to train younger officers, and they would either use dice or a more experienced referee to teach tactics and what the likelihood of outcome is. And they liked the dice idea because it represented some of like the unfactorable things, luck, skill, morale. So next time you got 5 soldiers that swing and miss on all ones, maybe they were a little shook up. They got out there with the newbies. They weren't, your marquee experienced guys. Take that into consideration. And then wargaming started.
They're just made out of plastic.
Wargamings didn't actually start taking place with civilians until the turn of the 20th century, and usually you had more affluent areas and small groups that started doing that because you really need disposable income and time. So you had small affluent elitist groups that would actually do, I think it was typically naval war games, and they would buy.
I know there are books that is what is it? Well, God, I'm going to lose my nerd card for not remembering the book that was written. Small Wars, was it? I mean, obviously they've been using lead figures forever. Right?
Yeah.
And lead soldiers have been a thing for a long, long time. And people have painted them, people have put them up in regiments across the table and played in war games. But I think that as far as you can go to the store, you can buy a box, that box has rules, that box has stuff to play, that we really saw that coming about in the late 70s, mid to late 70s and then onward.
I think it actually, I think it was around the 50s to 60s, I think it was Avalon Hill that first started it. They started working with rubber molds instead. So they reduced the cost. And they were actually be able to make things on boards, on paper, really make it kind of like a mass consumer idea. And then you started seeing a lot of different ideas with maps and even concepts, because originally it was historical fiction, which historical is battles that actually happened. Fiction is what-if battles that might not have happened or maybe could have happened. And then sci-fi didn't even enter the idea until the mid-70s. And I think, what was it? I think it was Task Force Task Force Games was one of the first groups to actually bring it in.
Somebody
as a
likes
concept.
Task Force.
Task Force. And then if you do like Avalon Hill, I believe in the 70s, they were one of the first companies to actually do a geomorphic map, which means that you have these little tiles and you could change your map up, so it wasn't the same battle on the same terrain all the time. And the 70s had a big explosion in ideas because there was a lot of companies out there. Even Games Workshop. I mean, you actually had two different types of. You have Game Designers Workshop, which is not the same as Games Workshop. Games Workshop came in 75. Games Designers Workshop, I believe, came in 1970. And the Designer Workshop was trying to bridge the gap between RPG players and miniature wargame players. And that's when you started seeing RPGs have miniatures in it, and they tried to actually do this crossover. Fun fact about Games Workshop is they actually, I think, were one of the sole primary distributioners for D&D in the 80s.
Yep.
That was one of the big titles they got.
Yep.
But you saw this huge amount of
somebody
competition going
likes
on.
Well, because the Citadel brand at that point in time was making things in miniature were primarily used for RPG, tabletop. There wasn't really a coherent rule set for anything that we know as GW right now back then. And then, of course, all the stages of Rogue Trader and into 40K and yada yada, and the fantasy miniatures and all that. So.
Hey, and Doug and Ozil said that story you were talking about is Little Wars by H.G. Wells.
Yeah, Little Wars. I was Small and Wars. I was close. Small and Little are close. That worked.
Yeah.
And Ironhead had
They're
asked
synonyms.
what's up with the Miami Vice look. I blame this guy. Literally, Mike came in
Hey, where are your
with these
glasses?
jackets, these tuxedo jackets, and said, "You're wearing this." And have you seen Mike? Because I'm not going to argue with him, right? At least not when he's standing right next to you holding the jacket. So I'll argue with him across this table because he's got to wreck a bunch of stuff to get to me before he can strangle me.
And I'm the one that's only got the painted stuff on the table.
And you only have 2 health left too, so be careful.
Uh-oh.
Be careful.
God.
Be careful. Snake Man says when he was a wee lad, they played with 1/172nd World War II tanks and planes, set up your own board by playing on the floor, even made your own terrain. Yeah, exactly. Like when I was doing like 35th scale stuff, I think that I would like to believe that tabletop wargaming is just a thing that people have an innate kind of draw towards, right? Because I mean, really, that's what board games are.
Yeah.
You don't have to call them war games necessarily, because not all of them are about destroying your enemy in fire and the lamenting of their women and that kind of stuff. But I think that even like the game of life, right? You spin the thing, you drive your car, you get married, you get babies, and it's all about winning, and it's all about pushing these things. And there might not be as much strategy as luck and random nature to some of them as others. But I think that the general board gaming industry as a whole has kind of always had this foot forward towards what tabletop wargaming has become. And I think that as we look at it today, looking at it from a historic sense and where it has evolved to, obviously technology has pushed us tremendously, right? New ways to create faster, better miniatures. It used to be that there weren't a whole lot of miniatures. I know that when I was starting out, miniatures were Ralpartha, some Citadel. Citadel was very hard to get your hands on in the States, but Ralpartha was a big thing. And those were the miniatures that were, here's a cleric with a mace, and here's a knight with a sword and a shield. And while the poses weren't superiorly dynamic, because they're back in the day, they weren't multi-part kits, they were single molds. They still, as a kid, you were like, oh, hell yeah, right? I mean, this is awesome. This is the kind of thing that I've always wanted, because we were having to find Hot Wheels cars or whatever else and design them, Star Wars figures and all of the things that you do as a kid. You go outside, you play Cowboys and Indians or whatever it is you do. You play guns, cap guns, and,
I mean, back when you didn't know better.
Well,
back when I was a kid, Last Action, Hero was a movie? I still think it's fantastic, but it was way better when I was 10.
oh, not bad. Not bad.
Houdini 7 literally played Life last night.
Not bad. Life is not a bad game.
And that's, that was a different concept that you have. When you talk about wargaming, they have business war games. I mean, you could say Monopoly is actually its own idea of a war game because the business tactics are used in the military fashion.
It's an economic strategic game, yep.
Avalon Hill, Speak of the Devil. One of their big games in the beginning, they had tactics too. And then they also had, I believe it was called Diplomacy.
Yep.
And that was solely focused on politics and interactions.
Yep.
And now I would say a current version and a nice blend is that Song of Ice and Fire game, where they have both politics and they have the wargaming aspect.
Yeah, if you haven't heard, the Game of Thrones franchise, Cool Mini or Not, one of our channel partners, is right now embroiled in a Kickstarter where they're having tremendous successes, lots of unlocks for a Game of Thrones tabletop miniature game. Now, as we'll discuss in a few minutes, I'm not sure, are they calling that a miniature game or are they calling that a board game? I feel like they're calling it a miniature game. But it's hard with Cool Mini or Not to know because they're like the bulk of their sales are board games, what we would consider board games. But more and more board games now have miniatures. So that's kind of this discussion is where are we headed? Because there are a lot of games like the Seven Sins, Rage, they come out every day on Kickstarter. I seem to see a new one that has miniatures. Yep. The Zombicide games count in there.
They're fantastic.
The Walking Dead board game counts in there, but you buy it in expansion packs with miniatures in them. Is it technically a miniatures game, or is it a board game? Because the thing in my mind that really gets us in that world is that a board game, to me, has a certain type of replayability.
Okay.
Monopoly is obviously a replayable game because it really depends on the group of players you play it with as to how the game turns out. And Monopoly is one of the biggest table-flipping anger games I've ever seen in my life, right? It's one of the games that will drive families apart, in my opinion. Because it does have such a tough strategy attached to it, and you got to get down and dirty, right? It's like, no, I'm charging you rent. What do you mean you're charging me rent? Well, yeah, you have to pay rent. But I'm married to you. Well, then you have to pay double. And it's one of those games, right?
Dane Cook has a Monopoly bit where he accuses his grandma of, she's the banker, stealing money, and he calls her a cheating whore. Nana's a cheating whore!
Thank you so much, Ray Silver!
To give you insight into my family, I remember being 10 years old, and the difference between an adult and a child is that a child always holds on to hope, whereas an adult knows when to just cut it off. And I remember being 10 years old, going around the board and slowly dying, and just like losing this, losing that. And I remember ending up on Boardwalk with a hotel. And I just,
You owned the hotel?
No, I didn't. I remember looking over.
And all of your soul was sapped out.
I landed on a chance card. That's what it was. I remember just thinking, oh, I can go to Go. I can get $200. Maybe I can make something happen. And it was go to Boardwalk, and it was owned. And there was a hotel. And I just looked over and I went, and the person just goes, I was like, just give me your utilities. And I go, Grandma, no. And she goes, all right,
Grandma!
never mind. Give me your railroads. You won't bargain next time.
Dollar donation
That's my
received
family.
from RE.
See?
Well, so that's why I don't play Monopoly. I prefer to play 40K over Monopoly, and that says a lot. But in today's world, as we move forward into miniatures, we get a lot of games that have got that board game feel. They have the tiles you spoke of that arrange, that give it a little bit of replayability. Jen and I sat down, and we've told you many times on stream, we sat down and tried to do Super Dungeon Explorer, the cute little chibi miniatures. It's a board game, not a miniatures game. It's a board game that has miniatures. The rules on that one fail miserably, in my opinion, and we're not going to get into that here today. But I could see what they were trying to do. They were trying to create a social game that 2 to 4 players can sit down and play, and do in kind of a cool evening together scenario like board games really take life to, and roll some dice, have some fun, and instead of a little thimble and a dog and a train, you're moving around miniatures of things that actually appear like the character that you would be playing. So I think that is great because it transcends, while Super Dungeon Explorer by itself I don't think is a great game, I think that whole genre helps people transition into wargaming, right? Okay. Because that battle context starts to approach and become more approachable. These games aren't sold as things where you have to have the whole hobby specter hanging over your shoulder. And I don't, me, I'm a hobby guy first. But I do have to admit that the thing that keeps a lot of people away from the games that we know and love is the hobby aspect. I have to build these models. I have to put pewter miniatures together, right? Mike C., not a big metal miniatures fan. So as you go and you put these models together and then you have to paint them, and it can be daunting for people who don't really have a creative sense or don't really feel like that's something that they want to be part of. And so how do we show people that there's a reward that's actually worth it? Well, I think these board games are great, right? I think that it's a great way because you can get board games that come with pre-colored miniatures. The Song of Ice and Fire, the Lannisters are red. Yep. The Mountains guys I think are yellow, right? The Winterfell guys are gray, right? The Starks are gray, and so they all have there's green, and there's so as kooky as it sounds, because we like to paint and we like our miniatures to look better than just green plastic. The thing is, that comes in a box for somebody that loves Game of Thrones, who's never really gotten into miniature wargaming. They open that up. The miniatures are going to be great. I can tell you that already. So they're going to have these neat miniatures. They're going to put them on a table, and eventually that's going to get them paying attention to cool miniature knots, other things, and they're going to see Wrath of Kings or Dark Age, and they're going to say, well, maybe I could really put some models together and throw some paint on them and see if I like that, or buy them from a commissioned painter or whatever they do.
Yeah. I think it's great to have flavors, because if you really want to break it down, it's whether or not it's on a board game or it's on an expanded tabletop, whether it's a skirmish level or a grand scheme or grand, however you put it, for the larger scale games. As long as somebody finds what they enjoy doing and allows them to nerd out, or at least allows them to relax a little bit and kind of ease in.
Yeah.
I think all those levels are fantastic, and you need it. It's like the Burning of Prospero game, I think, is a fantastic way. If you like miniatures, great miniatures. You can also play a really fun game with it. It's on a board, so it's contained. You don't have to go too crazy, because some people don't like list building. Some people don't like thinking about the grand picture. They want to relax, roll some dice, have a good time. Those games, Gore Chosen's another one. I mean, I know I'm sticking with a lot of GW stuff right now, but I think they've done a good job of at least making gateway games in. So we shouldn't be, when we say what the state of the miniature world is right now, or whether or not wargaming is a thing, it's like, well, no, you've got different levels. And I think the fact that now we're actually addressing different levels, because before it used to be like an all or nothing idea, where it's like, look, you either get into the skirmish game or it's not for you.
Yeah. Now
we're actually pulling everyone in, so you're making a community. And the more people you involve in the community, obviously the stronger and better it's going to be, because new ideas and new blood. That's why I think having a lot of competition in the 70s gave us a lot of great ideas. That's why I think a lot of the technology and production value that we have now, where it's obtainable for smaller companies to actually come in and take a shot, like Arena Rex.
Yep.
That is something. Or Kickstarter. What Kickstarter can do, and whether or not it's successful or unsuccessful, there's qualms to be had with Kickstarter.
Oh, God, he's going to get me started.
And it's true. It's true. I think we pulled up some numbers on that.
We did.
But the fact that a new idea can come in, my concern is, and why I think the show is actually going to be valuable, is that it gives those smaller companies an opportunity either to have like a break-in, because, if you say wargaming or miniature wargaming, you put in like this little defining search term. And if you don't use the right term, maybe you don't find the game. Or the problem with the internet is like, take Wild West Exodus, for example. A great example is that they made a product in the beginning that it had some flaws.
Yep.
And now they're in, I think, beta 2 testing for their new game.
I realized that was local.
Yeah.
That happened here local to us. Wild West Exodus was a company owned and built here in Arizona, in the U.S., and it just recently got sold to Wayland Games over in the U.K.
Yeah.
And now they're redoing the rules, redoing the miniatures so that there's less resins moving into plastic. So, yeah, it's a good story.
And I think they have a fantastic rule set right now. Great miniatures. They redid, like, second edition.
Well, and how great is it that one company noticed a value in a product because of a niche it filled, Weird West, perhaps, and something that, had a flavor to it but wasn't being handled properly, in their opinion, and worked a deal to get it because it was failing, but saw that they could bring it to life again, and saw that there was a group of the gaming community that liked the property, and now they are blowing rebirth, and they've done some stuff with Beast of War.
Yep.
So I love that. And I do agree with you. I think that one of the things that I tend to gripe about the most in society these days is that we tend to compartmentalize things to the point where every time you find a way to say you like a particular kind of music, you find out from somebody else that, but do you like which of the 10 subheaders of that music? I like rock and roll. Well,
punk rock?
What does that even mean? Because now there's 40 different types of rock. There's probably 100 types of rock and roll that somebody's going to tell you that do you like progressive? Do you like prog rock? Do you like, I don't know. My God, I just like rock and roll. Why are you asking me these questions? And I think it's good. Like with wargaming, what we're trying to do here on the channel is understand that it's all wargaming, right? I mean, we just drew corollaries to Monopoly as a war game, because technically it's a psychological war game. It's an economics war game. If you think about modern warfare, how's it really fought? Economics. I'm going to crush your country by making your dollar not worth anything. It's really what happens. So that's Monopoly at a T. We don't really send guys out to fight as much as we used to, right? Especially not in ranks of soldiers. So, but so I think that I tend to want to look at everything as tabletop wargaming. I think the wargaming title might be a little bit limiting, because it makes it seem like it's all guns and shooting and blowing up and things like that, which is what we love, so that's what we talk about the most. But it really is, and I agree. So talking about things that are board games versus miniature war games is kind of getting blurry, and that's, I think, what I'm really trying to drive home, is that as we go forward, I think we're going to see more of those GW-style games, right? Burning of Prospero, the Gore Chosen box set. I feel like there's a lot of people that kind of, push them off to the side because it's just a good way to get miniatures on the cheap. Admittedly, we've all used them for that. The box sets are a great way to get a started force, but there's a game in that box. There are cards, there are special dice, there are playing boards that a lot of people throw away. You see them for sale all the time because they didn't touch them. I know we've got 5 or 6 sets of those things in the studio here that I've never even read the rules for. Because to me, and that's my bad, right? I probably should be reading the rules for it because I'm always griping, especially in the case of GW, that the barrier of entry to GW games is so high because you got to look at a 1,850 point list, a 2,000 point list, and okay, well, how many models is that? Well, it depends on the army. You want to play Tyranids? That's 5 million army or 5 million models. Do you want to play Imperial Guard? That's 5 million models. Do you want to play Space Marines? That's 5 models. So it's it gets into a situation where I think that especially the younger the crowd gets, it's going to be harder for them to dictate to their parents that this has a value attached to it. Especially now, if I can look at a box set there are literally games coming out that have over 100 miniatures in the starter box for $80.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
$80 to $90 is the target that they're going for these games, like Zombicide and all that stuff. And the expansions, it can be anywhere from that to lower and whatever. And they come with more miniatures. So, games like X-Wing. X-Wing, you can get into the starter box. It only has 3 miniatures, but I think it's like $40 or $50 or something like that. I think for all the rules. I might be wrong on that one. I'm not great with pricing. But you can get into that, and then in order to add ships, it's $14.95 every quarter or every few months that it comes out. So you can go to Mom and say, like, hey, Mom, if I sweep the porch and take out the trash for 2 weeks and I don't argue with you, can I have this new thing? And chances are, it's going to be fairly easy to get that new thing. As opposed to, hey, Mom, so this new GW stuff for my army came out for 8th edition, and it's only going to be $500 for me to make my army relevant again. I think that we can see where that goes. But to GW's credit, those games could be a way that if we really thought about them, looked at the rules, right, and said, hey, this is not a bad way to get started. Into something that is admittedly a huge crack addiction that's going to filter all of your money out as you go. But that's why I really love where the industry is right now. There's a lot of good games. We are primarily here focused on those kind of gateway drug games, we'll call them, the ones that are smaller skirmish level games you can get into for $50 for a starter box, and Infinity to get a tournament ready army can be as low as $107 for like the Toha box, the combined army box. I mean, we're not talking about a lot of money here, guys, and it gets you everything you need to actually go play in a 300 point tournament in the terms of Infinity. So the industry itself is changing, and I think that it's been talked about for years, but it wasn't always necessarily readily available to be able to do that because the ability to manufacture the miniatures at a cost where you could provide them in an army set like that. You had to make so many in the background, and if you had a small game, that was too daunting. You can't make 10 million miniatures to sit in stock while you try to go sell them 5 at a time, right, when nobody knows your game. So the big beasts in the corner, the Games Workshops of the world, were really the only ones that had that continual turnover. And everybody else just kind of threw, spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, so I think you're right. I think that we're at a point where there's more and better to come. Talk about Kickstarter a little bit, because I think that's one of the best vehicles that we're seeing for how these games are coming out.
Well, we pulled up some quick stats on Kickstarter, and from overall what we saw since Kickstarter has been around, as far as games go, they claim that they have helped at least 32,000 launch projects. And obviously, we know that Kickstarter is not always successful. There are successful projects, which means that they actually get to distribute, they hit their goals, and they distribute on time. But for total...
Okay, so wait. So in order to be considered a successful Kickstarter, you have to deliver based on your schedule of delivery that you mentioned in the Kickstarter itself?
You have to hit your deadline.
Okay. So when because you told me 34.9% of Kickstarters in gaming are successful.
By under Kickstarter's own statistics.
No.
Yeah.
34.9%, guys.
On their own statistics, yeah.
Okay.
That's what they're self-reporting.
So 34.9% success rate to me is fairly abysmal.
Hey,
Not
somebody
good.
likes us.
However, you'd be a great baseball player.
Welcome, guys. Thanks for the follows.
Lots of follows.
I guess, but when we talk about 34.9% success, and
over almost 33,000 projects attempted.
Yeah, no, I
Think
get
about
it.
that.
I get it.
More telling, though, all right, when you look at total dollars for games projects, it was around $681 million pledged. But that doesn't mean, obviously, Kickstarter isn't successful. They
Total
don't
prior to successes.
Exactly.
Right.
On successful dollars, they broke it down into successful was 615 million, and unsuccessful dollars was 57.6 million. And there's some other numbers between live projects and live dollars going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm seeing with that, though, is if you're telling me total dollars pledged is almost 700 million, and successful is still above 600 million, but your failure rate is in the 30s. I mean, your success rate's in the 30s. Your failure rate's in the 60s.
It tells us that the biggest companies or the biggest ventures out there are the ones that succeed. But I don't know what that really says, right? So, resub. Kenny says, suck it. Hey, thank you for the resub there, Next Level. Okay, so that there can be, you can infer a lot. This is one of those numbers games where you can make that say what you want it to say. But in my opinion, what that means is that the Kickstarters that go out there with a target in gaming, we're just talking about gaming right now, but the ones that go out there with a target and a focus, they have a structure, they have a marketing plan, they have a target, they have a set of goals that are both attainable and presentable, meaning that they're going to appeal to a group of people, right? Then I feel like those are obviously all the things that I've said there lay the grounds for success, right?
Yeah.
But okay, so where are these other 70% or 66%, 65% of failures? What kind of garbage are these people throwing out there that are seeing no success at all, but are still equating to, what was it, $57 million?
Yeah, pledged.
Yes. That they never got to reap the benefits of because they failed. So this goes into that whole conversation of get your proverbial S together before getting a Kickstarter going.
Or maybe somebody, let's say they didn't have a good product. Let's say maybe they had a great rules idea, but they just couldn't cash it home or sell it to people. And I think that's where competition is absolutely key for games in general. Because when you saw
$700 million thrown at these various games that we see on Kickstarter, and I can guarantee that I've seen ones funded that I look at and think are garbage.
Yeah.
But I've seen ones funded very, very quickly that I thought, oh, that's going to be an amazing game, and I can't wait to see it. So I see all ends of the spectrum, and I feel like it's I don't know that there's a common denominator there, right? I think obviously cool miniatures.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for. If you got cool miniatures, I don't care what your rule set is. Sometimes I'm just going to try to get your miniatures, and I don't back a lot of Kickstarters. I'm that guy.
At the time.
But, I feel like there's still $57 million left on the table from companies that almost got there, right? So what are we missing? What is Kickstarter really providing for us? Is it, if 70% of them are not delivering, is that setting a precedent to make it harder and harder for that other 30% to continue to succeed? Because that's what we talk about a lot on stream. Is it obviously as it tilts towards I pledged but this thing never happened, or I pledged this thing got fulfilled but never delivered, because I'm assuming those sit into that as well.
That's got to be in there.
So, and it's something that we can't answer here. And you guys in chat are going to have your aspects on. I know every time we talk about Kickstarter, there are people that come in and say they've only had great experiences. There's people that come in and say, by and large, that they've had failures that made them mad. And everybody's going to treat that a little bit differently. I think the core takeaway here is that you see it being used in some great ways to help push, as you mentioned earlier, the creative spikes that we're seeing now. I think that it's a great tool. I think it's something that then allows the gaming industry to reap the benefits of creativity that it couldn't have done in the 70s, 80s, or 90s even, because there wasn't an avenue in business to get your idea out there if you yourself weren't a businessman first, or didn't have access to a businessman avenue where I could go in and talk to someone and say, hey, I got this great idea, and it'd have to be somebody that wanted to, number one, listen to you, which today, if you walk into a bank, I don't know if any of you out there try to do these things, but if you try to walk into a bank and say, hey, I got a great idea for a tabletop miniature game, that's about what you're going to hear, right? You're going to get the crickets and the stale look, because they don't even know what you're talking about. Even though we're talking about Kickstarter with 700 million since their inception in this, I don't know that even those numbers are going to be big enough to get somebody to take a look at you as a creative dude with no business background and say, yeah, here's $250,000 to go do your thing.
Why should I?
Hey, do you want to hear some of the comments
Sure,
that people are making? Inventive said you also have to look at varying success. I pledged to a project called Game Night Life Mats. They're making erasable magnetic gaming grids funded in 2015. They have yet to deliver.
Okay.
See?
Right.
Flippia said that it means that people who fail do so because they don't know how to budget.
True.
Don't know how to budget is there's a very, very strong set of business tools that you have to have in order to be successful. And that might mean long-term success. You might be able to get into a Kickstarter, get the money out of it, and be successful with that Kickstarter. But we had the Creature Caster guys in chat with us last week during the stream, and while we were painting, and they themselves said that one of their biggest problems was having a successful Kickstarter. Because now they had the money, now they had to produce, but they had to produce more than they set out to produce. They had an expectation of X amount of units sold. When the Kickstarter did X times that amount, they couldn't just go to their production facility and say, hey guys, we sold 5 times the amount of product, make that happen. Because they're going to look at you and go, we can't do that right now. Because the manufacturer can't always just, they're going to be happy you have the money, but they're not always going to be able to just put you into the production calendar. That's just not the way the world works, right?
No, and I mean, Kenny actually made a great point, which I was going to jump to. And he's talking about promotion, getting the word out, creating a demand. And when you look at today, I mean, in the 70s, they had a lot of pamphlets out. There was a lot of just digests published where there's new advertising. Now, a lot of our sources, unless you want to spot money to those companies, if you don't have money, how can you really afford advertising? Yeah. Or you have to go to the bigger conventions like Gen Con, Adepticon, market, in person. Even though we have the internet, if you don't know which search term to look in, or you're not reading the right blog, you might not see something. Or you might see an older blog about, like, let's say Wild West Exodus, when they're saying, hey, first edition was rocky. Well, am I going to go into it unless you do research and find out, by the way, it got rebought, it's been polished up, it's a new product.
Well, how many people don't even know about Wild West Exodus?
I didn't.
Right. So, I mean, and I think the point is that our niche market, right, with all the dollars that you may throw around hundreds of millions of dollars every year in tabletop wargaming, whatever the number may be, it's still a small niche market that most people don't even know exists.
Yes.
I mean, how many times have you tried to tell a friend of yours what you do with miniatures and their head flies off because they're like, what, that's a thing? I don't even know what you're talking about. Because number one, you have to be seated well into the world of nerd and geekdom in order to even understand what it is as a concept, right? That grown men push little dudes across a table, roll dice, drink beer, have fun. It's if you describe it like that, like I move models around a table, we roll dice, we drink beer, we have fun. I have a lot of friends that would be like, hey, when are we going to do this? And then they'd never even thought about it. But it's hard to get into. So then if you do have a good Kickstarter idea, how do you get it out to people? Because, even your Facebook list, if you only have a few hundred friends and now you have this great idea, that's a few hundred people that might get it and you might get backed. And so do you start small? I think that's a thing. I think that rather than going out and asking for $600,000 in your Kickstarter, if you went out and asked for $60,000 so that you could take care of 100 sets of it and get it into the hands of people that could promote, people that have avenues like Spiky Bits where they can go and they can talk to people about it, that then you have an avenue to reach tens of thousands of people and you start growing. But I again, it's hard to tell, right? Because Kickstarter doesn't provide us with those kinds of numbers and breakdowns, so you can say, of all these failed ones, what was their average target? Right? How do I know? I don't know. No. Some of them were probably asking for $100,000. Some of them were probably asking for $5,000. And so it's very difficult to get a trending on it because Cool Mini or Not does a lot of things through Kickstarter, but it's more of a pre-order scenario. And so they go in, they get big bucks, but they've already got the vehicle to be able to make those big bucks turn into activity that then presents product and keeps moving. Not that they aren't prone to failure too, right? Nobody's invincible. But yeah, I get it. And those are good points. Any more?
Nope, that was it.
Yeah, I mean, all of those are good points, is that you can have successes that don't deliver. But those are considered failures on the numbers that we're throwing out there from Kickstarter at least.
You could fail on Kickstarter with a great idea just because you didn't get enough publicity out there.
Well, and I think that's probably the biggest key, right? That's probably Kenny's point, is that you can have a great idea, but because you only reach 5 people with it, it's not necessarily always going to be that those 5 people each told 5 people who then told 5 people who then told 5 people.
Kenny did also say that Longmore got easily funded a couple years ago on Kickstarter, but he said it wasn't a good experience as the creators. For them, it wasn't good for them.
Yeah, and I think that's a tough one, right? Because you kind of have to. Thank you guys for the follows. I think the hardest thing with any business is that initial writing of the business plan, having all of these great ideas and putting them onto paper in a way that makes sense for other people. That's really what a business plan is you're putting together your ideas, your concepts in a palatable sense that can be shown to someone else, sometimes to go get a bank loan, but in this day and age, more times to go get a Kickstarter. But if you're just a creative type, and you've got all these cool pictures, and you've got all this neat stuff, and you throw it out on Kickstarter, and you wonder why you made $15 and didn't hit your goal, because you didn't know who to talk to. You didn't know how to do the business part of making friends in the industry and talking it up before the Kickstarter happened, right?
Yeah.
And we're not here to discuss the hows to do Kickstarter. That's another show in and of itself. But I think a lot of people fail. And the main takeaway here is that Kickstarter as a vehicle for wargaming, for tabletop gaming in general, is tremendous, right? If handled properly. But I wish there was a way to drill into the head of these content creators and get them on a path of understanding that the business is as important as the creative nature of it. They don't unbalance one another, but they need to be in balance for it to work, so that this is a total selfish proposition that I'm making here, because I want to touch more stuff, right? I want to have more games that I can put on the table and play and throw dice and drink beers with our friends and laugh and have fun. And that's the whole goal of what we do here. It's a very social thing, but in order for it to succeed, it has to have a social group that understands it exists. Cool Mini or Not is a great place and a segue into them right now. They are a channel partner of ours. We don't really deal in their board game side, which is their biggest part of their industry. Cool Mini or Not, when you look at their 2016 profits, they use Kickstarter for just about everything that they release these days. And in their miniature world, in 2015, let's start with 2015, they had nearly $700,000 worth of miniature sales and gross, which for an individual company is pretty good. We're going to say that is pretty good. They don't rank in the top 5 as far as miniature games go. They don't rank with the Fantasy Flight, the GW, or even the Privateer Press, right? But they are still doing, $750,000 in 2015 in their miniature games, which their miniature games are composed of Dark Age and Wrath of Kings.
Okay.
At the time, I'm not sure in 2015 if there was any other titles that were in there, but there are very few.
Just throw back my legs.
Thank you so much for the host and the resub.
That's it.
Still one more name. Thank you so much. So you've got nearly $750,000 in 2015, but in 2016 that number dropped dramatically down to $189,000, less than 200, when you nearly had $750,000 just the year before, the preceding 12 months, and they run a standard calendar year as their fiscal.
Okay.
So that was the year ending December 31st of 2016. They reported less than 200,000 in miniature sales. Now, 2016 for Cool Mini or Not in particular was a tough year, and we're talking about 2016 where I see miniature games on the growth. I see Cool Mini or Not running tons of successful Kickstarters, but what that's telling me is that they view those Kickstarters as board games, right? Even though they have miniatures in them, some of them. And so Dark Age, Wrath of Kings took it in the nuts a little bit, so to speak, because they were probably focused more on these development of board games that also have cool miniatures. And so that kind of affects this whole conversation. Is we need everybody to start just calling this tabletop gaming, perhaps, and whether it has miniatures or not, I don't know that subsection, it seems to be kind of misleading anymore. But now in 2017, as Cool Mini or Not starts to pull the bootstraps up with Dark Age, redid the rules for this year. Wrath of Kings getting lots of updates. We don't have the numbers for them so far through 2017, but I can see that hopefully they're on the rise from marketing and from just availability. They're on the rise. So even that dip for 2016, it's hard to see what that really means. But for me, it may seem that Cool Mini or Not, because one thing that I have to say in there is that from 2015 to 2016, they saw $4 million in gross revenue year to year increase. So 2016, they made more money by $4 million over 2015, but miniatures weren't part of that growth, and they still made money, which if I were just an investor, right, what it would make me look at for Cool Mini or Not in particular is, hey, you should probably just write off this whole miniatures thing and focus on what's giving you $4 million a year in growth. Because from 17 million to 4 million, that's another 25% growth, nearly 23% year-over-year growth, just from board games, guys. Yeah. And technically more than that because they lost some on the miniature side, right? So overall, it was more growth than that. So we got to be careful because here miniatures we don't want to see go away. And then we've got these other games coming out that are really seeing people grow. So it is how do we get the momentum into miniatures so that we can help companies like Cool Mini or Not who have great properties. Dark Age and Wrath of Kings are great properties. How can we pump that along as a community? How can we get it into more hands? Cool Mini or Not dropped the ball. Their distribution sucked in 2016. Okay. So it completely screwed the pooch for them because it was hard to get their miniatures. Distributors stopped carrying the stuff. all sorts of issues that we don't know the details of because they don't release that, but I think it had to do equally with Cool Me or Not's ability to distribute the stuff and the distributor's ability to pay them for the stuff they had because product had probably been sitting on shelves, so on and so forth. The whole, if you're not familiar with how this miniature world works, and you're like most of us, you're just a consumer that either wants to go to the internet or go to a local gaming store and buy a product, it all starts with the players, right? Even in the best of gaming communities, it starts with the players having interest in a game 9 times out of 10. There are those stores that are going to go above and beyond and bring a product in because the store owner likes it. He's going to put it on the shelves. A miniature gamer is going to walk in and go, wow, I've never seen this. I heard about it. I've always wanted to test it. I'll buy it. I'll try it. And then a community sprouts and grows. That happens. But by and large, we don't see proactive local gaming stores.
They can't afford it.
If you've got a story in your locale, type it up in chat. But I think 9 times out of 10, we see reactive gaming stores that are looking at what's going to make the most money. I'm going to sell Magic. I'm going to sell Yu-Gi-Oh. I'm going to sell D&D if I'm into RPGs. I'm going to sell GW if I'm into miniatures at all. There are stores that focus more on Privateer Press and War Machine. There are stores that only solely focus on X-Wing and Magic. Because it fits their kind of not really into the hobby thing. So stores are all over the place just like consumers are. But it starts there. You're not going to create an avenue for a successful game based on having a Kickstarter and some people that play it if the other people that weren't part of the Kickstarter don't have anywhere to go buy it. Namely Kingdom Death. Right? Kingdom Death has a huge fervor behind it, but most of it's on the eBay resale market of people that were part of the Kickstarter because stores don't carry the stuff and they don't sell it outside of the Kickstarters. So, neat game, but has a limiting factor to it that isn't really growing. And that may be decidedly because of the way Poots wants to do his business, the guy who runs it. But I think in large terms, in order to see miniatures grow, we have to have that availability extend beyond. We have to have stores asking for it. So it's not just getting you guys hyped. How do we get stores hyped, right? How do we get a store hyped or a distributor hyped so that those games can make it to the stores and people can buy them and play them? Right?
I think the simple answer is you get them to talk. I mean, how long have we said the problem with the X-gaming company is that they don't talk to their base enough. They don't have a steady contact or understanding with their fan base or with their market.
That probably one of the best points out there is that even after the marketing, after you've made the cool graphics, you've done the cool rules, if you don't have a way to stare your community eye to eye, whether it be through your forums, right? Whether it be through interactive nature like this on Twitch chats. I see Brian from Dark Age, as we're talking about Cool Mini or Not, does a Friday Live thing where he talks about rules updates and things like that. So, and he's the go-to guy for the rules for Dark Age. And so those kinds of things can bring in, more community that gets them hyped, that gets them asked their store, hey, can you bring this stuff in? Hey, maybe. So it is very grassroots still, even though we're talking about, in some terms, very large business. But the very large business, I think, as we see through the Kickstarter numbers you threw out there, is a very small amount of fish doing a lot of the money.
Yep.
There are great ideas out there that extend beyond that small pool of fish. How do we then support those? Get the communities growing. That's part of what we're trying to do here on this channel, is get some of those smaller games. Get the guys out there that not only do we love the miniatures, but we love the passion they've got behind the game. Get it in front of you guys so that you guys can then go to your local store and say, hey, I found this game. Arena Rex, this and that. And sometimes get in touch with the manufacturers and say, hey, how come you don't sell through distribution? Some of these guys only sell through their own website, right? And so that's a thing. It's like, how do you make that guy successful? So,
hey, this is something that we've kind of talked about before. Pixel Hobo said, I've tried to do a quick and dirty intro to airbrush class for free to help hobbyists locally, but the local store totally shot it down.
Yeah, definitely. Because of going back into that conversation of how miniature wargaming with the hobby side attached to it, if you're not buying X-Wing and you're not buying pre-painted miniatures from some other little board game, then there is that hobby thing, and you really have to get over that hurdle and make people feel like there's a comfortable way. And some stores do it by not requiring any paint on miniatures at all. I think that's a great way, even though, play with painted miniatures. But don't make it a lightning bolt from the gods above if you don't have painted miniatures, right? If you've done the job of putting them together, putting them on the bases and shown up, play the game, enjoy what you paid your money for, and then have guys like you that are out there trying to say, now how can we present a method to get paint on the models? But if the store is blocking you on that whole process, you're up against a very, very tough decision. You have to say, is there a way you can do it on your own without the store's help? That's tough. I don't envy you on that, because it shows a lack of interest from the one person you need the most interest from, which is your FLGS. they're going to be the ones that support you with terrain and tables, or at least space to play with your own terrain that you bring and models. So again, keep pushing.
Well, but then there's maybe overkill, because Joe Darkblade said we had a local gaming store here that was very proactive about bringing in and hyping new games, and they went broke.
Yeah, and I think this is important.
Too much,
Here's
maybe?
the important part about it, is that even these small games, even if they're partially successful, or at least giving them attention, and maybe ultimately they're not successful, they could come up with a really great mechanism. Like, look at Infinity. They have those ARO sections.
Yeah.
To me, that's the best part of the game. The fact that you can react in a player's turn, and it's a natural part of the progression of the game, is, I think, revolutionary. It really sells the game to me.
Well, yeah. Well, when we get into the specific rules, right? I think that, and of course, you've hit on a big problem that combined with what Jen is saying from Joe in chat is that, yeah, okay, so if I've got a store and I bring in every game under the sun because I'm trying to see what sticks, there's a hazard there, right? Because you get to a point where it's like, okay, unless you've just got unlimited funds to do this with, more power to you. You know, we wish, right? Let's all hit the lotto. We'll open up the store of stores, and there won't be a miniature game that's not represented, right? But that doesn't happen.
No.
So you have to be business oriented enough to know where your budget can be placed. For those stores, if you have one in your area, tell them, do a monthly focus. Bring one new game a month. You know, do what we're doing. You know, we're once a month or once every other month or something like that. We'll have a focus on a game here. We'll bring it in. We'll talk about it. Do the same thing in limited amounts. See what the uptake is. Bring in starter sets. I think that the best thing that a lot of these games are doing right now is creating 2-player starter sets. Yeah. That makes it easy on a store to stock. A couple of guys can get the 2-player starter sets, see if they like the army, see if they like the way the game plays. The store can open one, put it out on the tables, have it painted up and ready to play, and walk people through the demo, and then generate that interest. Now you can buy the 2-player starter set. Hey, I bought the 2-player starter set. I'm really interested in this other army they've got, and then they can special order it in. It's a different business mechanism, and it's very tough to teach people that, right? So I do. There is that teeter-totter, right? And it's wrong on both extremes, right? If you don't bring in anything new, you run the risk of these companies never being available again. If you bring in everything new, but you run out of money because you're not focused enough on anything other than just having a ton of crap on the shelves, then that's not going to work. There's a balance there. There's having enough new stuff to generate, and watching what new stuff generates the attention in your particular community. Some communities hate sci-fi stuff and they play all the fantasy games. Some communities play no fantasy games. Some people are all RPGs. I see it might just be the store where it's located, the mentality of the people that go there in that area. I don't know. I feel like there's a pool of nerds like us to pull from anywhere you go. You just have to have the right marketing, get in the right people. I don't believe that it's that in Alabama they only play RPGs and in Seattle they only do, fantasy games. I don't believe that nonsense. I think that it really is how it's told to you. A lot of people that I've known have said, hey, we're not really into Infinity. I don't like anime. But then when they see the models, that nothing outside of the marketing is anime with Infinity, and you see the models and you play the game, then I see a lot of people get into it. But it's not something that you can really dictate. You have to actually have them touch and feel it in their own way and discover for themselves what that's about. But you can't do that if you're waiting for them to buy it on the internet, right? It has to happen on a table. It has to happen at a friend's house. It has to happen in a social setting. And I think that's what we're really discussing, is that the state of the game right now looks very good. The game being the whole world of tabletop wargaming. It looks good because new technology gets us the best looking minis we've ever had.
Absolutely.
Just bar none, unless you're Rune Wars. Gives us the best looking miniatures we've ever had. More accessible than ever, because you can buy X-Wing at Barnes & Noble, for crying out loud. X-Wing and Armada at the bookstore, right? And so you can get people into these games at game stores with board games that have miniatures in them. I think this whole full circle conversation is showing that now's the time to start focusing on the local communities, to start finding ways to loosen up a bit, not be so cocooned in one game that you've grown up with, that you're so emotionally attached to. Open up
your safe space.
Try your gaming safe space. Oh no, there is no gaming safe space.
What about a lockbox?
Break your safe space. Open the lockbox and get out there and start looking at some of these other games, seeing what sticks. Some of it might show you a really neat avenue that doesn't cost a lot, right? That doesn't have a high barrier of entry. And that can get you jazzed about something that could get you into social settings in your local region even more so than you already are. Some people are already at max capacity between family and everything else. We totally understand that. But I think we're really at, I mentioned it earlier, I think we're seeing a golden age of miniatures right now. You didn't like that term, but I don't care.
Ebb and Flow said Cool Mini or Not had Zombicide for sale via the Target web store.
Right, on Target, for crying out loud. Now that's funny because you can go on the Target website and all that, and they're becoming like Amazon, right? A lot of stuff on the Target website you can't really buy at Target, but I think, I don't know if Zombicide you can get at Target, maybe.
I'll have to look next time.
These are the things that these companies are trying to do because they see the interest in the board gaming, which is kind of revolutionary considering that for so long it's been video games, video.
Yep.
Now, video games and board games can be talked about in the same sentence and appeal to the same group of people, right? Even through Twitch, talking to Twitch streamers who I'm seeing more and more talk about tabletop gaming. I saw one of the biggest video game streamers for the Dark Souls series playing the Dark Souls board game on his channel to 3,500 people.
Nice.
And Dark Souls as a board game has some amazing miniatures in it, right? So it is technically a miniatures game. It just has preset tiles, and you don't have to go out and invest in terrain and paint terrain and do all that stuff because it's already kind of there for you. It's very two-dimensional. It's not as dynamic as what we do sometimes. But still, what a great entry. Now there's 3,000, 3,500 people that got introduced to a miniatures board game, a miniature war game by all definition, through their video game habit that they love already. And so even if only 1%, if 3 or 4 people out of that stream went and bought that, that's an opportunity now for more people to get into wargaming. And that's what I'm seeing more and more and more with video game properties bringing out miniature game properties trying to make video games, properties like Star Wars, Game of Thrones, things that are big IP out there, The Walking Dead. These are properties that people pay attention to out in their normal life. I got to watch the new episode of Game of Thrones. What's happening on Walking Dead, right? Where's Glenn's eyeball? So, we talk. Sorry, spoiler alert. But so as we go through and we see the interaction of all of this nerdy love that we have in the world right now, I just think that as miniature lovers, it's our duty to start looking beyond the safe space, the lockbox. Start finding ways to put your hands on new miniatures, whether you're just a hobbyist and you love it, or whether you just love the game and the social aspects of it. Get out there with your friends. Try some of these new games. We're going to provide you with an avenue to watch some of these new games being played, see the miniatures being painted, and get a better gauge than you might find out there in the world on your own as to why it might not be for you. And so we're excited to be able to help some of these smaller companies and deliver some content for small skirmish games that we love, whether they win, lose, or draw. It's great. And we're going to, hopefully give you the straight deal on them. So,
no, I agree with you. The thing is what I don't like about calling it a golden era is because we know things go in cycles. They're cyclical. In the 70s, it was a boom, and then it got low in the 80s, built back up in the 90s a little bit, and then it goes in an ebb and flow. And everything in life happens with an ebb and flow. My thing is that we have to at least keep focused
Somebody likes us.
and flow of communication with
thank you for the
designers
follow.
so that we don't get into that stagnated area again. So that we don't get one huge company dictating how wargaming is going to be.
No, and I think I totally agree with that, but I think that's why I see this as a golden era, because of the lower barrier to entry for wargames. It's the lowest it's ever been, right? In the 70s, the 80s, when I first started playing FASA games in the late 70s, early 80s, they weren't readily available. You couldn't even get them. There was no internet to buy stuff on. I know, comes as a shock.
What?
Right? Yeah, right?
The world existed before the internet?
There was no Amazon.
What?
No cell phones. Holy hell, I'm old. But you couldn't even go to the bookstore and assume you were going to find comic books. You couldn't go to the comic book store and assume you were going to find games. The things that we take for granted now didn't exist then. You might have one, and it had to be a store that was run by a complete nerd king of all nerds in order to find D&D, modules for D&D, Battletech, anything like that. And he might have the Battletech core set, but when CityTech and Aerotech came out, you had to go beat him across the head to say, could you order that in for me? And he'd say, and you'd pay for it, and it'd never come because he forgot to order it. Because even he was an old dog with no new tricks, right? So now I see that there are limitless possibilities. You can walk into game stores. Here locally, we've got a half a dozen game stores. I can walk in and find 100 games I've never even heard of before, right, on an ongoing basis. And so that's why I say that this is a peak moment for us where we ought to, as a community, be pulling together and checking these things out. I know most of you guys do. That's why you're here. It's why you check us out with the painting. It's not just one game dictating it, because in the 90s and in the 80s, whenever the market would go down, whether it was economics or whatever, if the only games you had available to you that your buddies were playing were 40K and War Machine and whatever else, then, those are large investments in order to get in. And so if you're not at the point where that's exciting to you, not going to do it. Now, like for $50, you can keep going. And so I think we'll see that hopefully those peaks and troughs will start to level out a bit. Maybe we can just see, I don't want to say smooth sailing because I'll curse everything, right? But I think that we're at a point where now the gaming community can see some relevance on an ongoing period. Technology, barrier of entry being lower, these things are only making it easier. Everything from people 3D printing their own stuff at their own homes is not too far away on the horizon. So, awesome stuff. And you didn't throw anything at me.
Not yet.
Oh, damn it.
You're looking.
Damn it. Mostly core sets and Target, says Snake Man. Yeah, I haven't been to a Target, like physical Target and Walker. I hate shopping in physical stores. It makes me break out in hives. Unless it's the game store. It's my safe space. If there is a safe space, I can go to the game store. And I can
You are a different person.
You have a safe space?
So,
Yeah.
yeah. It just is, that's about the only time that I like to go do that stuff, so. Don't forget the heat sinks. Yes, we have some BattleTech players out there. All right, cool. So that's it for our main event for today. Highs and lows. What do you want to talk about with highs and lows?
I'll let you go first.
Let me go first?
I think you had a big low last night.
I had a huge low last night. So the next section in the show is what we call highs and lows, and this is just where we get to vent or we get to be really excited about something great that happened this week. And I would like to say that I had a really exciting high. And I guess I'll just throw in the caveat is that I get to hang out with you beautiful people all week long. That's always a high. Don't ever give up. But I had a really bad low last night. I'm just going to come out and say it. There's this movie out right now called The Dark Tower. So I'm going to be the grumpy old man here. And I, wow. I don't even know where to start, guys.
That's something new.
I don't know where to start because for me, I'm the one that's usually trying to tell people that, translating especially a book or a media format other than visual into a movie is one of the toughest things. I don't envy the directors, producers, writers, none of that, because you're taking something, especially like The Dark Tower, that has millions of readers.
Beloved book.
That's millions of different views. What's that?
I said it's a beloved book.
Right,
a
it's
series.
Beloved, it's a beloved series.
Stephen King.
And you've got 1 million plus different views of what that world actually looks like, because every time you pick a book up and read it, you're visualizing an author's words and creating a world inside your own head that is some semblance of what they hopefully wanted you to see. But if I discuss it with you and you read the book, yours is going to be a little bit different than mine. Maybe it's that I have a vision of what the sky color is like there, the way they described it, or the way the mountains and the forest look. There's a lot of visual stuff that then you make your own and you relate the book to it. I'm going to try to do this spoiler free, but the best way for me to tell you is that there shouldn't ever need to be spoilers. Don't go see this movie. It is absolutely a movie that should be shit canned. Excuse my French, but they should throw that reel away and never show it to anybody again. It's a horrible piece of work. Even in a vacuum, the movie is no good. If there was no book called The Dark Tower, if Stephen King didn't exist, this movie is god-awful horrible. It had great actors that did horrible jobs in it. Just butchered. The only thing, okay, I'm all over the place because I'm so frantic about this deal, but like literally, if they took the Harry Potter series and all they did was put 4 characters in the movie that had the names Harry and Hermione and whatever and Voldemort in there, and then they made it a musical comedy that had nothing to do with magic, that's what the Dark Tower movie is. It is a movie that has absolutely no references whatsoever to the books other than the fact that there's a tower, there's a bad dude, there's a good dude, and there's a little boy. And they have the names. And that's literally where the connection ends.
It actually would have been better as a musical.
It probably would have been better as a comedy musical about magic, I think. But it was, my head is in my hands. I never get this way about movies, and I feel very bad that this is what I'm saying. But I couldn't give it a low enough ranking in my head. I walked out of there and was just completely blown away. I went completely open after seeing the reviews about how bad it was for exactly the reasons I'm stating. And then we went and saw it last night anyway because I was like, I'm interested to see it because I'm just going to walk in with an open mind and see what they did. No, it was a bad buddy cop movie. It was horrible. Horrible. I think that's all I can say.
I loved it.
Don't see it.
I love your reaction.
Don't listen to this guy either.
No, I see what you're saying with it. I saw it, I think, Thursday night. And I will say, not having read the books, no idea about the world. I mean, to me, Matthew McConaughey is playing his Chrysler advertising character. He's just wandering around, just uttering
Talking
things.
in
and
that
just
same
standing
tone.
there.
Exactly.
It was one of his commercials where
It really
he's just
was.
driving, and I mean, there's police lights in the background, and no one knows what's going on. But now hearing what you do, I finally feel better because I was somebody who's really big into the X-Men comics. And I hated every single X-Men movie and every movie about Wolverine, especially Old Man Logan. Just hearing how you're going at it makes me feel like, all right, I'm not ridiculous. I had something invested, and they didn't display it.
Somebody likes us.
Do I think the movie was
Thank you for the follows.
a waste of money? No. That was a fun hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. I don't.
It was an hour
know.
and a half.
Hour and a half, 90 minutes.
Well, I say the
That's
plot
it.
was absolutely thin. Absolutely, I had no idea what was going on half the time, and I was going, just say shine one more time. I don't even know what shine is, and out of nowhere in the movie, all of a sudden the kid knows how to use it, but didn't know he had it. Like, wait, what? It's like, what? I don't.
It's not even a thing. Just made up stuff. They're just making up words now.
Hey, I'm getting my shine on.
I got the shine on. That's all I know.
But
horrible movie. Horrible.
I didn't think the actors did a horrible job. I just think they were kind of handcuffed by their script. They did. There wasn't a scene in the movie where I went like, "Ooh, don't do that." I didn't feel horribly awkward by Matthew McConaughey, which is unique.
Anytime he spoke, his voice just was...
Well, I think I found there are some things, like I found somebody on the internet that stated in their review that Matthew McConaughey would have been the perfect bad guy in a rated R movie where they could have taken it further because his personality in the movie was geared towards that kind of evil. But in a PG-13 movie, it was all restrained and you didn't see anything, and it was just as dry as a twig.
Yeah.
It was horrible. Idris Elba's character had no development. None of them had any development.
Yeah.
None of them.
No.
None of them. And the story had nothing to do with the book. Like, literally not even the book. Don't call it The Dark Tower.
Hey,
They should have called it
Jeep's mom
Magical
says,
Cops 2 or something.
Jeep's mom said really enjoyed learning more about all this.
Jeep's mom is my mom. That's my mom right there, guys. Let's get some love in chat for
Mom.
Jeep's mom.
Mom?
That's Fuse mom in chat. How you doing, Mom? Yeah, so it's a horrible movie. It's a horrible movie. And I'm not saying... understand, let's be frank here, right? This is part of Gloves Off. I'm not going to hold anything back when I review things, but by no means does this mean that if you love the movie that I think you're a horrible person.
No, definitely not.
The one great thing that you'll always hear me say is that I can like chocolate ice cream and think vanilla is horrible. You can like vanilla ice cream and think things are horrible with chocolate. But at the end of the day, we both like ice cream and we can hang that on our hats, all right? So I like movies. Hopefully you guys like movies. If you want to give it a go, wait till it's at the dollar theater, please. It's a horrible movie, and by supporting movies like that, all you do is make sure that we get more of them, and we don't need more horrible movies like The Dark Tower. And I went in hoping, beyond all hope, that I could enjoy it, even though everybody said it had nothing to do with the books. I'm on book 4 right now, just to give you an idea of where I'm coming from, and I'm loving the books, like absolutely loving the books. Had they just had even 2% of the book in the movie, I probably would have liked it a lot more. But they had 0%. Well, they had like 0.5% because the names were the same. But.
Well, and I went in thinking from past experience that, well, Stephen King movies usually are not as anywhere even close to as good as the
taking
books.
this damn jacket
So I
off.
knew that, I had fairly low expectations.
I didn't
Hey,
wanna
do you
wear
want
this
to talk
either.
about Valerian? Because Murphy Bob asked if you've seen Valerian yet. He said that movie is like the total opposite of Dark Tower. It really follows the old classic comics really well, albeit the two head actors might be a bit emotionless, but the movie itself is beautiful and its faults are not too
It's
disruptive.
funny because in our local Infinity group, Tom Shadle, who we've had on the stream before, went and saw Valerian, and he spoke about Valerian like I just spoke about Dark Tower. He spoke about Dark Tower how I'm going to speak about Valerian right now. Valerian, I thought, followed the canon of the graphic novel and the story very, very well. I felt like the character and the world that was created, the City of 1,000 Planets or whatever, that whole thing is great French sci-fi, right? And there are a ton of great graphic novels from that era that you should go check out. Great art styles, great stories to be told. Valerian is one of them. And I really liked the visual depth of the movie, right? He is an amazing guy when it comes to just sweeping you off your feet with crazy colors and visuals. The Fifth Element, all of these things that he's done have been amazing. But I felt like Valerian was shot in the foot by the acting again. The lead actor, Valerian, was just... he was worse than a Keanu Reeves trying to play Keanu Reeves kind of a thing, I think is the big thing that I'm seeing. It took a lot out of it. I think it would have helped if they just would have gotten a guy that wasn't as slight of build, I think. I think that some of the acting, the vocalizing of it could have been taken aback if he just had a little bit more of a prominent build. He was just a weak-looking guy, so then weak acting with a weak appearance hurts. I don't mean that we needed a bulked up, Dolph Lundgren, superhero type guy in there, but I think that it was just, there was something in between that needed to happen. He needed to be a little more Han Solo, a little less what he was in the movie, right? He could have been a dapper, little more swagger to him, but he needed to be a little bit bulked up. And I think that's the way I would go. If Valerian had been more Han Solo than what he was in the movie, it would have been fantastic. I really loved it, though. I thought it was great. I think it created much more of a visual world than the Dark Tower movie could have ever done. The Dark Tower movie didn't even tell you what the world was about. There's a guy called a gunslinger, and it's kind of Old West, but in his world, nothing else looked Old West. Everybody else looked like something from the 70s or 80s. It was
weird. Sabat, though, says don't read the last 20 pages of the final book because you'll be furious.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
just be aware that that's coming.
Yeah.
Let me know when you get about to that point so that I can be prepared.
So she can go take a vacation. She won't be in the house.
I'll be gone that day.
No, but I did it. I like it. And generally I try to go into movies. There will be a lot of this kind of Siskel and Ebert back and forth on this stream, I'm sure, because we will talk about everything from movies to books that we're reading and games that we're playing as well. But I always try to attack things with an open mind. With the Harry Potter is a good example because I went in not having read the books, didn't have any investment in the world at all, really enjoyed the movies because I even waited long enough to where there were multiple ones out that I could watch kind of together, and there was growth with the characters as they went, so I could see that and dial in. Then when we saw Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them,
that one.
By the time that one came out, I was like, oh, this is cool, and I'm invested in it, but I still don't have the same. So I do acknowledge that as I'm going through right now reading The Dark Tower and not being a Stephen King fan, mind you, is that I'm enjoying those books, and does play a little bit about why that movie is bad, but I like to think that I can take it into a vacuum and say that had I seen that movie and there was no book and there was no Stephen King and there was no history about it, it was a horrible movie. It's a horrible movie. But he said he liked what was the movie you said you liked earlier in the day? Got to give people a litmus test. The Stallone.
The Last Action Hero?
Last Action Hero.
Loved it. That wasn't Stallone.
Oh, who was
Dice
it?
Roll.
Oh.
Who's in it?
Schwarzenegger.
Oh.
Rubber baby buggy bumpers.
What's this hitting me on?
Didn't see that coming.
What's this hitting me on?
I'm gonna go 2 Up.
2 Up.
Oh.
That's like his
That's a big one.
parody to all his movies.
And you get a 6, of course, you bastard.
That's right. Take 2 damage for that.
What? 2 damage? Yeah. 2 damage isn't even a thing. Now we're tied. You like the Dark Tower, you lose all your health.
All of it.
There you go.
Oh.
There you go. Uncle Touchy.
Without even a roll.
Oh, no. Uncle Touchy. There you go. Done. Uncle Touchy liked the Dark Tower. He's out. Sorry. It's not even a thing. Not even a thing.
Ray Silver said Stallone was on the posters in it.
Wow. Well, shuck it, Trebek.
Stallone was on the posters. Oh! So there's another reason why he took all your health.
But he wasn't in the movie.
And you're dead. You're dead. We're done with him. He's dead. Screen's busted. He's dead. He's dead. He took all of it. No more from you. No more. We still have to listen to him, though.
You can still hear me. You can still see me. I'm still here.
Somebody likes
You can't
us.
take away. Evil never dies.
Ridicule coming in with a resub. Thank you. And thank you for the follows, guys. So any other highs and lows we got to talk about? You got to live with me for another
I
week?
did. I got to share space with you.
That's a high if ever there was one.
I'm still in the
I
big
saw
high.
John Mayer. That was a high this week.
She did see John Mayer and loved that concert.
If
so.
he is coming to a town near you still yet at the rest of this tour, please go see him.
She was
You
so
will
happy
not
when she
be
got home from that
disappointed.
concert. That was awesome. She was
So
happy when she got her
good.
nose pierced too. So.
Yeah.
Did he sing
Those
that
are my
Bade
highs.
song? The Bade?
My body, your body's a wonderland.
Yeah,
He
Bade.
did sing that.
That's how he would say it.
He did
Bade.
sing that.
If
He
you had
did
more
an
health
acoustic.
that I could take away for knowing that, I would take more health off. As
Fantastic.
a
It was
matter
an
of fact, you know
acoustic
what we're going to
version. It
do?
was
We're going to give him a
fantastic.
health back just so we
Just
can
to
take
take
it
it?
away again. There you go. You've now officially lost 6 health
I
on a
was
5 health
surprised.
bar.
I was surprised at how many men were in the audience there without women. Whitney brought up the point that maybe they were there thinking
Together?
that they could meet women. No, they didn't. I don't think they were.
Oh,
made,
because it was
but
like a pickup place.
maybe
Okay.
they might have been using it in that manner.
John Mayer, a meat locker.
He
of a
brings
concert.
couples together.
Bringing couples together. One
For
concert at a
17
time.
years.
You were going to mention something else about your highs?
I'm really on a big hobby high with these Klinsky Sable brushes.
And they're great, right?
It has absolutely changed it. I was doing. I've actually never painted with like a true hairbrush. I was always using synthetic and blending, wet blending.
He doesn't mean hairbrush, by the way. We don't paint with hairbrushes here, just in case you're...
Sometimes I try. I didn't know better. We all make mistakes.
We should try that on stream once.
I'm all for it. Absolutely.
It's so different for people. I've had so many people contact me and say, hey, I try to watch you on stream. I watch your technique with working thin and layering up, and it never works for me. I get brush strokes and goopy paint, yada, yada, yada. And the first thing I always ask is, what brush are you using? And a lot of times they'll send me a picture of a synthetic brush. And I'm like, well, that's why it won't work, right? It just doesn't work. It doesn't hold paint the same way. It's always going to give you fits. Going to a red sable or Klinsky sable brush will save you worlds of pain as you increase your painting technique in our hobby. You definitely got to join us on stream during the week to see. And with our new brushes coming out, it's not even that big of a jump in price. You're talking about our brushes are going to be $38 for a set of 5, which is great. Less than $8 a piece. And then, of course, there's Winsor Newton higher quality brushes that range in that $15 to kind of $25 to $30 range. So even if you're just going to bite the bit off and kind of bring one good sable brush into your kit, it's not going to set you back too far, but it's going to give you huge rewards. So I definitely urge people to go look at it, and I'm glad to hear that you're.
I only grabbed 2 from you, and those are the only 2 I'm using.
That's all you need, really. Your other brushes work fine. A lot of people think you have to supplant every brush you've ever used with Klinsky sables. That's not the case. You still are going to use synthetics a lot, and it's fine too for base coating, things like that. But as you start highlights, as you start shading, as you start getting into more intense techniques, the sable's going to save you just a ton of headache.
Huge.
So, anything else? I think that's it. Guys, thank you so much for joining us for our first episode of Gloves Off. I hope you've had as much fun as we have. A lot of time in here. Do I get to wear the hat? You don't get the hat. I get the hat. Give me the hat. Give me the hat. I get to lead us on the outro with a Fat Lady Sings hat because I still have a health bar. Look at this. Over here. I still have 2 health. Mike somehow lost 6 health in a 5 health game here. So everybody,
Rigged.
Let's see some love in the chat for
Rigged.
Mike. This.
Remember this.
No.
Remember this.
No.
Remember this.
They're not
Rigged.
listening to you. Look at you. You
Rigged.
have no health and your screen is broken. Nobody cares. Nobody
truth.
cares.
The truth will set you free.
Cha-ching! I have been victorious on the first episode. Hopefully this will continue a streak for many shows to come, although I feel like you guys are going to turn on me. I don't know why. But with that, we're going to take it out of here. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Make sure to tune in on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays for our live painting stream, as well as next Sunday where we'll be doing our first live gaming session here on the Gloves Off show where we do Deep Wars with all the fish guys and the bad puns. You should show them your shirt. They haven't seen your shirt. He's wearing a Macho Man.
it.
You should have brought the glasses.
Yeah, we're
Look at the
definitely
sleeves.
definitely missing the glasses.
Look
the
at the
sleeves
sleeves.
What?
are really the
Would-
best
would
part
this-
of this.
Look at
This
the,
ever
look
not-
at the
The
sleeves.
fringe sleeve.
Authentic.
Do you see what I have to deal with here?
Pretty spectacular.
Do you see what I have to deal with here? Best outro ever.
Ray,
Love you guys.
thank you so much, Ray Silver.
Love you guys. We'll see you later. Have a great weekend.
Let the cream rise.